Welcome to Banned Books Week, celebrating the freedom to read. Welcome to Book Your Imagination. My name is Anne. Today is day 4 of my Banned Books Week series. And before we get started, I have to say, to be honest, I've had a couple of glasses of wine for an event I had earlier this evening. So if I don't seem like myself, I am actually a happier version of myself. I don't drink a lot, so 2 glasses of wine is pretty significant for me. But I kind of think it's apropos for this video because, to be honest, of all of the topics I have learned about Banned Books Week, this is the one that disturbs me the most. When you think about literature, you think about books, but you don't think about comic books. Comic books are overlooked, but comic books are one of the most attacked forms of books for censorship. So much so that there is a nonprofit organization dedicated solely to defending not only comic book creators, but comic book readers. It's called the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, the CBLDF. And when I tell you about some of the cases that they have handled, you'll probably want to get a couple of drinks too. For example, in Florida, there was a comic book creator named Mike Diana, and he created a zine called Boiled Angel. I've seen a few frames from this zine, and I'll be honest, they were pretty disturbing. He was arrested, tried, and convicted of, publishing, distributing, and advertising obscene material. If you remember from my first video, obscenity is not covered under freedom of speech, and the jury and the judge deemed that his artwork was obscenity. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, during which time the police could, at any time without a warrant and without warning, inspect his home to make sure he didn't possess any obscene material and that he wasn't creating any obscene material. He's an artist. He wasn't allowed to draw for 3 years. He also was prohibited from having any contact with children under the age of 18, which means if he had had a child of his own, he would not be able to have any contact with it. He was forced to undergo psychological evaluation, forced to take a journalistic ethics class. He was sentenced to a $3,000 fine and 1,200 hours of community service. All of this is pretty severe for creating artwork for a zine. You know? The CBLDF defended his case and exhausted all of his appeals, and his conviction stands. There is no place left to go for him. Then there's the case of Christopher Handley from Iowa. He was a manga collector, and he was arrested for possessing manga that depicted minors engaging in sexual conduct. He was arrested under the PROTECT Act, which was designed to protect actual minors from sexual exploitation and to put the perpetrators of the sexual exploitation in jail. All right, now you're not going to hear me say anything bad about that. People who exploit children for sexual purposes should be put in jail, and these children should be protected. But there is a clause in this act that bans depictions in cartoon, artwork, sculptures, or any other type of art that could lead the viewer to believe that minors are engaged in sexual conduct. And this is what he was arrested for. There were no victims. He was a manga collector, and some of the manga contained objectionable material, and this is what he was arrested for. He didn't go to trial. On the advice of his lawyer, he pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail, followed by 3 years of supervised release to run concurrently with 5 years of probation, because he possessed manga. He read manga. He was not a child predator. He didn't have pornography of any type. He didn't have child pornography. and he had no criminal record. He was a manga collector. He is the first person to go to jail for possessing manga. In my last video, I talked about the top 11 most challenged books in 2018. And just as kind of an aside, I don't know if you noticed, but when I was showing the book covers, how many of those books had won awards? It's a pretty significant number. Anyway, for this video, I am going to talk about some of the comic books and manga that have been challenged in 2019 and why. Assassination Classroom is a series about a group of misfit students who vow to stop an alien supervillain who is posing as a teacher. This was pulled from a school in Staten Island in early 2019 from parental objections over the title and the theme. The theme of the series, by the way, emphasizes camaraderie among students and the value that good teaching has on pupils who have otherwise been discarded. This is currently unavailable, pending review by an evaluation committee. At the end of the 2019 school year, the Wallace School District in Silverton, Idaho, removed the Walking Dead series over concerns of graphic imagery. A review committee voted to retain the series, but an administrator unilaterally overrode this decision, so it is no longer available to students. And students are not allowed to bring their personal copies to school, and the district is considering restricting student access to the book through interlibrary loans. This summer, Lila Sturgis, who is the author of the Lumberjane series and a transgender activist, was scheduled to talk about her book, The Infernal Compass, at the Leander Public Library in Texas. 2 hours before the event, the city shut it down. The city shut this talk down. The reason they gave is that there were temporary changes to library event policies, whatever that means, and that a background check had not been performed. A background check that had never been mentioned and had never been required before. This is not just the government stepping on someone's First Amendment rights. This is the government stomping all over those rights. Personally, I wouldn't want to read a zine like Boiled Angel that Mike Diana created. Those images were pretty disturbing. And I have absolutely no interest in reading manga. I could actually stop that sentence right there. But I have no interest in reading manga that depicts children having sex. I find that repugnant. But should either of these men, the one who created the art and the one who possessed it, should they have been arrested for a crime? I don't have the answers to those questions, but I hope I've given you something to think about. Thank you for watching.